Welcome everybody to Podcast S'mores. And today I'm really excited to introduce my guest, Junie Moon, who is a love coach. Hi, Junie.
Hi, good to have you. Good to have you. Good to be here. I'm so used to doing my own podcast. Happy to be here.
No worries. So good to have you. This is such a hot topic. I mean, I'm such a hopeless romantic myself, but I think there's so many people out there, especially literally like a month ago, things just started to open up. People are just starting to get back out there and starting to want to date again. And there's so much confusion about how to find your person and, not getting into some of your old patterns and figuring out what to do. And you've helped so many people with this. And so I'm going to read this. You sent me your bio, and I'd like to share your bio with everyone, just so they know a little bit about your background and in what you do and what you've done in this space. So Junie Moon is the love coach, and I love that. Who teaches women in midlife how to magnetize their ideal partner and experience next level love using her unique heart-centered dating strategies coupled with some powerful mindset tools that help her magnetize the love of her own life. Women learn, and men, you work with men too.
Yep.
Women learn to embrace this precious stage of life with confidence, playfulness, and ease. And there's a lot also that you've done. So you have you're an award-winning international speaker. You're the best-selling author of Loving the Whole Package, Shed the Shame and Live Out Loud, the director and producer of a film, Shed the Shame. You're the host of a podcast, Midlife Love Out Loud, and a certified shadow work facilitator. We're going to talk about a lot about the shadow, that whole topic. And you can find her at coachjuniemoon.com.
So, there you go.
Left out.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I always like to start my podcast. I feel like everyone has a story about why they're doing what they're doing. And I'd love to have you share your story of how you got into being a love coach and help people with their relationships after like 40, it's 40 plus. Is that your say?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
So, well, like everybody, I've had a life and I've had lots of different experiences that have shaped me, giving me beliefs about love. Disney giving me beliefs around what romance should look like.
Yeah.
And so I grew up and had all of these messages come to me, and it brought me into relationships that weren't necessarily the best relationships. And I brought myself to the table with the beliefs and the challenges that lived inside of me. And so I was in a marriage for 20 years, and I walked on eggshells. I was afraid to speak up. I was afraid to get my needs met. He had a lot of bully energy. He would be in my face sometimes if I were to speak up. So I learned to micromanage everything. And, suffice it to say, intimacy, safety, it really was shaky, and it affected me a lot. In fact, I used to use food to get me through. So about 19 years ago, I was 200 pounds and thinking I had a food problem, which I did, but it wasn't really what was the problem. But anyway, that's another whole story. The bottom line is I was suffering inside, and I was suffering in a relationship that sucked. And so I started to dive really deep into personal growth work, and I found shadow work, and I found I was able to see that there were patterns that I was bringing to the relationship. It was a self-esteem issue. It was a belief issue. And I started cleaning that up. And the relationship didn't last. He didn't go for the ride when it came to healing. And I had done a ton of work on myself and a ton of learning about dating and relationships. So when I left him, I thought, this is going to be a piece of cake. I'm going to find the man of my dreams. I'm so much healthier now. I'm ready to go. And I found myself back down the rabbit hole with another relationship that had a narcissistic, energy to it. I found myself walking on eggshells again. I was like, shit,
You
I
don't
still
have
have this
a voice,
issue.
like your voice,
Yep,
you lose your voice in the relationship, and then you're
absolutely.
angry and
Oh my God. And again, I was afraid of triggering him and I was squashing myself. And that's when I really stopped. And I stopped the pattern. I did the deep dive into the shadows. I did the deep dive with a mentor. And after some time with some deep healing, I found this amazing partner now. And I've been doing shadow work because I think it's the most amazing work on the planet, transformational work on the planet. I've been doing that for a really long time with many, many different types of people, and I still do. However, because of my journey, because I've been in the trenches of feeling horrible and doubting whether I can have a really great partnership and really be able to meet somebody heart to heart, head to head, and have a good relationship, and then having it, I was like, this is the population I want to help. So that's why I became the love coach, helping women in the second half of their life really put a stake in the ground for who they are now, what they really want, clean out the past, and give them great dating tips and tools so that they're not wasting their time on the wrong person.
I love it. Yeah. And we all have stories that we keep replaying and replaying. And I think sounds like you're helping people change the stories in their mind, and then doing a lot of inner work. I think doing that inner work to attract someone that is healthy for you and a good match for you. But that
And
takes,
I had to get healthier. I mean, that's the thing, is we always are looking outside of ourselves and, is he going to be this? Is he going to be that? Oh, he's got this problem. He's got that problem. And it's like, well, why are we attracting these types of people? What's inside of us that is pulled toward those people? And what I help women do is really do the transformational work to really come home to the fullness that they are. Like my book is called Loving the Whole Package. It's like, let's get you to love yourself and fill up your own cup in such a brilliant way that you're going to attract somebody that's going to resonate with you and connect on that vibe level. Because if we're unhealthy, we're going to keep attracting that same pattern, that same challenge. And, there's some wisdom, cosmic wisdom to that, because that means we need to keep working on that stuff.
yeah,
And if we really want things to change, let's work on ourselves first.
absolutely. And I think, speaking our truth is so important, on both, not just the female side, but the male side too. And being able to not morph yourself into something you think someone else wants, but really being like, this is who I am. You don't have to like purge everything about you on the first date. I mean, it can come out in slow pieces, but I think that what I learned and what you're saying, like what I learned through my marriage, was to be like unapologetically me. And,
Yep.
and if that person doesn't like you, then that's not the right person. But
Yeah.
be able to come into that space, and that's scary, for some people, and it takes time and takes working with someone like you.
Yep.
So yeah, thanks for telling us your background and your story. And so why do you think people struggle in relationships? There's, I think we're all our own worst enemy, but I would love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Well, we haven't been taught how to have healthy relationships. We haven't been taught the, really healthy communication skills. And it's a muscle to build. I mean, here I am teaching communication skills, and I still slip into some old patterns. Sometimes I catch it as quickly as I can. We haven't been taught how to take really good care of ourselves and come from that place, so that we can really share from our hearts and be able to feel safe in a partnership. So, well, like what I was saying before is we have this life of all these experiences and losses, betrayals. Yeah, so we've picked up all these belief systems, and if you can imagine, we take all these beliefs and we put them in a bag, and we're carrying that big bag over our shoulder. We might even call it baggage, and
Right.
so we have this huge bag, or we have lots of baggage, and we bring that into our relationships. And it sucks, because then our new relationships are having to deal with all the crap that we're bringing from past relationships. So if we don't empty out the baggage, I always joke and say, let's bring a carry-on to our next relationship. Let's not bring the U-Haul of baggage, right?
That.
And so why do relationships struggle? It's because We haven't emptied out. We haven't let go of the stuff that we picked up along the way that has us saying the things we don't mean to say, saying the things we want to say, being relaxed in who we are, being able to open up our hearts and be able to drop into vulnerability and be able to have intimacy. Relationships suffer because we've picked up a lot of bad habits and bad beliefs, and we don't have the skill set to be able to meet each other in that, what I call next level love way of being.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, you know, one of the things that I've thought a lot about, you know, is what we're teaching kids at school, and that some of the things, this is just me personally, some of the things that we teach them are not necessary. And that things like learning how to get along with others, and also in a relationship, a romantic relationship too, is something that we should be taught, you know, those relationship skills and tools from a really young age, and we're not. And then we become teenagers and go into these relationships and we have no toolbox.
Right, right.
Keep going. I mean, I obviously I'm passionate about this, but I don't know how and if things will ever change, but I feel like it should change from when people are younger.
Yeah. And so the adults have to do the work so that they don't spill out all their beliefs and crap onto their kids.
Yeah.
And the kids need to, because you know, if we teach the kids, but that then they go home and see their parents having really horrible conversations, communication, shaming each other, putting each other down. It doesn't matter what they learn. So it's across the board. We got to teach the kids, and we need to do our own healing work, which means people have to be conscious. People need to realize and be aware that things are not working, and be able to take some responsibility for what they bring to the table, because at the end of the day, it takes two to have a relationship. And what are we all bringing to those conversations?
Yeah, for sure. And so my next question for you is, so why do you think people who want love, like there's a lot of we sabotage ourselves, right? We get into a really good thing and then we mess it up, or we pick fights, or, you know, we test our partners, just as like that kind of thing. I don't know if that's what you call sabotage, but for me, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
What are these gremlins, and why do we have them?
Yeah, huge question. And that's the realm that we're talking about, you know. Again, so we have this big bag of experiences that have shaped us, and in that bag of experiences, we've learned or been taught how to be and how not to be, what's comfortable and not comfortable, what's a safe way to be and what's risky. Mm-hmm. So if we were brought up in a family that was that didn't have good, healthy boundaries, and maybe you had a parent that was aggressive and trespassed against you, whether it was emotionally, verbally, physically, on some level, you learned it's not safe to be a certain way with them. Let me keep my mouth shut. Let me be a good little girl. Let me make daddy happy or make mommy happy. And so in shadow work, the main body of work that I do my processes with my clients, we say that there's a part, and there are many parts that we're healing, but there's this one part we call the risk manager. And mm-hmm. This part came online at a very young age and said, ooh, when you act like this, dad beats you up. Ooh, when you say things like that, mom criticizes you or judges you, whatever it is. And so at a young age, there's a part of us that goes, I better come up with strategies so that you don't get hurt. You need to stay safe. You're vulnerable. You're a little kid. Let's behave in certain ways so that you'll be accepted and loved. All right.
Yeah.
So we have all that as in childhood that lays down a huge foundation of what's acceptable behavior and what's not. And then we go into the rest of our years and we get more proof about, oh, if I act like this, my boss treats me like this. Yeah. Or if I act like this, I get judged for that, and a million other things. And so we start to behave in ways that are not in alignment with our highest and best truth. We don't get to be relaxed in who we fully are. Right. And basically, we've taken some of our energies, some of our most beautiful parts of who we are and threw it in what we call the shadow bag. I better not express my anger because when I do, I'm called a bitch. I better not express my vulnerability because if I'm really vulnerable and I share that I'm hurting, the last time I did that, I was shamed. And so we throw away these parts. So let's just say vulnerability. Like when I was vulnerable, many, many times in my life, I've learned I better not share these things because people don't understand me, or, I had a bad reaction from somebody, or I really got hurt and felt so exposed and it really shut me down.
Right.
And so if we're not vulnerable, then we are in protection mode of our heart. And then we go into a relationship and now we're being so careful not to share our heart, share our most edgy places, and that gets in the way of intimacy. So we sabotage that relationship by not letting somebody in. That's just one example. So, here's a quick example too. I was working with a client. She was in her early 50s. And I mean, on the outside, you would say she's got everything, great personality, great job, great life, but she never had a long-term relationship. And she struggled with that. Every time she would find somebody, it was somebody she had to fix, somebody that she had to work so hard for. And she would find herself being so exhausted trying to help them. And then she then ended up sabotaging the behavior in certain ways, which I'm not going to say because it's too personal to her. But bottom line is she sabotaged the behavior with some bad behavior and the relationship would crash and burn. She started working with me, and a few months into working with me, because I have a program and we do the shadow work in the program, she had this huge breakthrough about what happened in childhood, what she brought into her experience of how to be and how not to be, and how she viewed love and relationships. As soon as she had that breakthrough in this process, within a month, she was at a party and she saw this guy that she hadn't seen in like 6 years. And when they saw each other 6 years before that, they were not attracted to each other. They weren't interested in each other. But now she had shifted.
Right.
And he noticed her. She noticed him. Bottom line, it's 2 years now since they've been together. The summer in June is 2 years. So there's healing to be had. And we have to shine a light on the stuff that we've lost access to and that we're not aware of because it's in shadow.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. And I think a lot of people end up in relationships where they're trying to fix the other person. I think it's to make yourself maybe feel better or to be needed so that the person doesn't leave you possibly. I don't, you're
so many things. Maybe you don't want to be alone and you feel like, oh, at least I'm not alone. Or you feel like you have more value if you're taking care of somebody. Maybe you learned at a young age that you're supposed to be the giver and the nurturer, and you weren't taught that your needs matter too. I mean, there's so many nuances to it. Right. Bottom line is we have all of these messages coming at us from our culture, from Disney, from TV, from magazines, and from our parents and our friends. And we get trained. We get trained in how we're supposed to be. And then we act from these places of shadow because that energy has to go somewhere. And it's not the way we want to be. So we work on that so that we can drop in to be grounded and confident and have healthy boundaries. And then we can be unapologetically us and be loved for us and seen for us with all our imperfections and our beauty.
Yeah. There was some movie with Robin Williams and he was a psychiatrist. I'm trying to remember what it was, but he was sitting with his patient and was talking about how once you're like truly in love with someone, those imperfections that they have are the things you love the most about them, not the stuff that looks perfect, which I thought was super interesting. I'm getting off course.
Yeah, no, I mean, who knows? I mean, we look at different people, and again, we have our stories around that. And when we see people struggling, it definitely opens up our heart, right?
Yeah.
And if somebody can really share vulnerably and authentically, then it opens us up to connection. So there's something to be said about valuing somebody who can really drop in and share so honestly some of their pain and some of their challenge.
And I'd love to touch on vulnerability and sharing, the parts of ourself that not everyone sees. And that's, to me, like, in a relationship, is when people connect, is when they're sharing some of their the pain and the hurt and some of the things that they don't tell everyone in the world. Like, that's where the connection happens and the vulnerability happens. And I see this with men a lot, especially in my age group, like, where you start talking and they just can't let their guard down, and they just can't. And women do it too, but I think more so in our generation, where men were really not told it was okay
Yeah.
to share their pain or to cry or to do any
Yeah.
of those things. Like, and that, I think, is so frustrating for some of the women out there like me who want, we want to get to another level of connection. I think everyone does. It's just scary, and everyone has more to them, like, than there's always layers of people. Anyway, so I'd love to talk a little bit about vulnerability and how do you teach some men and women to be able to trust enough to let their guard down so that someone can come in and get to know them? Like, is that a long process, or?
It really depends on the person. It really depends on what else they've done in reference to healing work. I mean, I always say that it's not like talk therapy, where people will be doing it for years and years and looking at stuff. It's not a real heady process that I do. It's very transformational. So it's not years and years. I mean, I've had people do, a couple of processes and huge shifts where they're able to drop in and feel way more confident and way more safe. And that's what we're talking about when you're talking about vulnerability and trusting. We need to see what happened that has taken away that comfort level of safety. And again, like what you just said about men, and I feel badly for men.
I do. I feel like I'm like, you can tell me, like, you can trust me, like, just
they have to feel safe. Yeah, they have to feel safe.
Right. And I've had people say, like, I've been on a date where people have said things like, what you see is what you get. Like, this is the most it was basically like, this is the most information you're going to get from me. And I'm thinking, there's so much more to this person. And this is so frustrating to me,
And that's their defense. That's their risk manager saying, hey, let them know that you're not going to be anything other than this. I'm going to put up that wall for you right now. That's their defense system. Now, if somebody's so defensive and so that way, expressing with such determination of, you're not going to get anything from me, that's probably somebody who has not done a lot of work, and that's where you might have to decide, is this somebody worth hanging out with and seeing if maybe the walls do come down. At the end of the day, it's like, some people have much thicker walls than others. And so, men in our culture have been told, suck it up, be a man, don't be vulnerable. And then they have experiences that have them even more scared. Then they've been hurt by women. So you get to the 40s and 50s and 60s and you're meeting men that have been emasculated, shamed, feeling like they're not good enough. And then you can come and be the most amazing woman and create the safest place that they've ever experienced. And their guard's going to be up. And so it can take some time, but we need to work on ourselves, because the more we're solid, and like when I would say that this has happened many times.
I'm gonna close the window because we have people outside doing work, and it's probably
sure. Go ahead.
And so I'm sorry. Okay.
You know what? It's live. It's good.
There's literally a tree next to my office that needs to be cut down, and they're out there. So
I live near a police station, so there have been times I was getting interviewed, and it was like, I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So the more comfortable I've become, the more healed I've become, the more I've been able to share from that authentic, solid place, has allowed others to go, wow, she's sharing so vulnerably, I can too. And it depends on the person that you're talking with. So to go back to your question, how long does it take? You have to do the work.
Yeah.
I mean, people want to know, how do I get out there? How do I meet, great partners and not keep spinning my wheels and kissing all these frogs? And I'm like, well, I can give you all the dating tips and tools and help you streamline that process. But if you're still bringing that bag of tricks with you and you're coming from this place of, I need to protect my heart, we need to learn how to take good care of our own hearts, to feel safe and trust ourselves. And then we can open up to others. So it's not a long process. And yet it is a process. And, I work with people, usually I have people work with me for about 6 months, one-on-one, or in my year program, for us to really take some time to unpack and anchor in the new way we can view ourselves and relationships and trusting ourselves.
That must be so liberating when people come back to you and they've had a breakthrough, and or just like you said with this person that had bumped into this guy and they hadn't seen each other for a while, and it was a whole different chemistry. Like that's
it's I love it. In fact, I
some work too, or was he always in like a sort of a more available emotionally?
What? I don't know. I don't know that answer. I just know that they're happy.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah. And speaking to what you just said, I actually saw, saw a client of mine who was in my program. I haven't seen her for a couple of years. And we actually had lunch yesterday, and it was just so beautiful because she was honoring the heck out of me and saying how powerful the work has been for her and life-changing. Actually, when she came to me, she was still in a very unhealthy marriage and really scared, didn't have that confidence or the ability to set boundaries, and very victim to her circumstances. And now she's like this, well, she's divorced now and a powerhouse and doesn't take shit from anybody, and she's grounded and happy and loving her life. And I was telling her I just started my program, my year program. The doors open once a year, and she was like, she was honoring me and saying how this work is life-changing. And again, that's why I do this work, because it's changed my life, and I love seeing people flourish.
Yeah, and fall in love. And all, I mean, what's better than that, right?
And it's falling in love with ourselves. Everybody wants to find that. I shouldn't say everybody, but most people come to me and they're like, I want to find somebody. I want that partner. I don't want to live the rest of my life alone. And the most important relationship is us. So we need to date ourselves first. We need to know what self-care is. We need to know what self-love is, so that when we actually do go on that date and do meet that partner, we bring that with us, and they're just adding. They're the cherry to the ice cream sundae.
And I wanted to also touch on, because I've been married and divorced, and I remember like after getting divorced and going on kind of my first date after that, and my mom, who is pretty wise, I remember her saying, like, you should, and I'd been like a serial dater up to marriage and then wanted to do it again, and I remember her saying, like, take some time off. And I ended up in a 6-year relationship. It was actually a fairly healthy relationship, but after that 6-year relationship, I was like, oh my God, I need, like, I'm going to have a full year sabbatical. And I did that again, like recently through the pandemic. But I feel like, I'm just wondering, from your perspective, people who are going through divorce, you always hear like the first relationship they're in again, almost never works. But do you think people should take time after a long relationship or a marriage to really go in and sort of date themselves and figure out who they are and what they want?
I really do. I really do. And I didn't do that. I jumped right into another relationship. And I have to say, it was one of the best relationships I've ever had. However, if I had only taken some time, even though it was, I don't regret it at all. It's one of the most amazing relationships I ever had. However, there was a lot of pain that happened between the two of us because we both hadn't done that.
Yeah.
And even though we had such deep love, we really weren't a good fit in so many ways. And we caused each other a lot of pain around that. I do think we all have our own journey, and there are people that have jumped right into another relationship and have been thrilled with it.
Yeah.
With that said, I think that's less common than we jump in and we go, oh shit, here we are again. I think it really is important to spend time with ourselves. And if it's been a long-term relationship, it's like, who are we now? We need to, I do this whole relationship blueprint exercise with my clients to get them so crystal clear about who they are now. Because when we were in our 20s and 30s, we're like, our hormones were kicking in. We're looking for a partner. We're looking for somebody to raise a family with or build our careers. We're in a whole different stage of life. So where are we headed now? What's most important to us now? And and emptying out the garbage that we've accumulated so that we don't stink up the next relationship.
Absolutely. And I think, there's some good parts about being older and being wiser, but then I think people have such images like body image and, being older and some of your creaks and you maybe physically can't do all the things that you did at some point, but I don't know. Yeah, I would love for you to speak. I'm sure that people have their hangups on that too.
Oh, it's huge. And in fact, like I just said, I just started my program and, we're building the container. Everybody's getting to know each other. And one of the exercises I do is who like me? Basically say who like me, and then you fill in the blank. Who like me has a child? Who like me is divorced? And so one of the questions was who like me has body image shame?
Mm-hmm.
And it was the only question that everybody raised their hand for. Every single woman raised their hand and said they had body issues.
So sad.
And it is really sad. And I'm still challenged with it. I've come a long way. I've gotten really comfortable in my own skin. And yet I still bump up against, my partner really likes that look more than me.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he? That's how he's been programmed. And how could he really love me if I don't look like that? And so, I still bump up against that. And then you bring in the age and you're like, oh, wow, I'm noticing, my, things have shifted a little bit and my boobs and,
like lights off all the time, right?
So what did you say?
Lights off all the time, that kind.
Exactly. There are people that feel that. Yeah. Very uncomfortable. I'm comfortable with the lights on. However, I do have some plug-in, Christmas lights and
low lights.
Yeah, low lights. And plus I think it's just nice and it brings ambiance, but I'm comfortable with the lights on. And with that said, it's just, we've had shame where we've been hurt. I had a boyfriend in my 20s say, if you only lost 15 pounds, you really have a really cute body. Young boys, young men have said stupid things. And that does not necessarily leave our consciousness. It drills in some more brain mapping saying, you're not good the way you are. You need to do something differently. You need to look differently. And and I've told my partner, I'm like, I could lose more weight, but the bottom line is my legs are never going to be like firm or athletic. It's just not, and I'm 57. It's not, not that many 57-year-olds that are have been up and down the scale can really get to that place anyway. So like, this is who I am. Can I love myself in my body? Can I see myself as beautiful as I am? And that's the film I did, the Shed the Shame, where I got naked and body painted. Did you see the film by any chance?
I didn't. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. I want you to see it. It's a 9-minute documentary on body image and body shame. And in it, I get naked and body painted. Huh?
Shed the Shame. I love it.
Yep. Yeah. I get naked and body painted by a well-known body painter. And I talk about my journey around body image shame and how I didn't even want to leave the house at times or put on a bathing suit and do anything I could to not expose myself. And I was able to do this in this film because I had done the shadow work, and I realized so much of the programming was there that wasn't true. There's absolutely nothing to say that because I have bigger hips or bigger boobs than other people, that I'm any less attractive than somebody else that is smaller boobs, smaller hips. I mean, it's just all big body shapes and sizes.
And there's someone for everyone. And I think that doing what you just described in body paint, like that must have been so liberating and just a little scary. And then you step into the uncomfortableness, and then all of a sudden you're like comfortable and free. And like, I think everyone should probably put body paint on naked and be filmed.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason I did it was because he said he was, he offered the opportunity for me to get naked and body painted. I had a TV show years ago and I invited him on and I said, oh, why don't you paint me? We'll do it live. And then I realized he paints naked people. And I just thought, what did I just say? And I really dropped into that. I'm like, can I really do that after being so terrified of being seen all those years? And I'm like, wow, I really can, which is when I knew that I had had a breakthrough. I had done so much shadow work around body image and body shame, and I was willing to share my story. And it's gone on to tens of thousands of people and I still have to this day, people, reaching out to me or saying, oh my God, thank you for telling my story. I feel less alone and better. I mean, we've been shamed. And so I use that as a metaphor, that film, because it's not about getting naked and painted. It's about breaking through these beliefs, these lies that we have taken on as truth, and really claiming who we really are and loving ourselves so fully.
Right. I think that's incredible work. And I'm excited to see that. So I'm looking at, I have we've covered a lot. Do you want to speak any more on shadowing, or do you feel like we've covered that? Is there anything else?
Well, let me speak about shadow work real quickly. Sure.
So you were like, one of the questions is, how do you know what's in shadow? And like, anywhere where you feel like we have not, because I think that's the most important work that you do within all the work you do to get people to a better place.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, that's a huge question, but let me kind of break it down. So we have the bag of all the parts inside of us that we've said, I better not be like, the shame parts, the scary parts, like, let me not show these parts.
Don't show him or her this.
Right. Let me not look vulnerable. Let me not express my anger. Let me not, and we don't just throw in all the quote negative things. We throw in some really amazing things like our self-esteem, our dreams. If we've been told when we were kids, oh, you're such a big dreamer, just stick to your math homework. We might have learned, I better stick to this because my dream of being an artist or an actress is not okay. So we threw away all these parts. And then that energy that we've thrown away, we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater, because inside of each part has value, like anger, healthy anger, being able to set boundaries. We don't want to cut people's heads off, but we want to be able to express ourselves. So in shadow work, we shine a light on the things that aren't working and figure out why. So if somebody comes to me, and it always starts with, how do you want to be? Oh, I want to feel confident. I want to feel trusting. Well, what gets in the way? Well, I have this belief that I'm going to be slaughtered, or I'm going to be taken advantage of, or I'm going to be left, and maybe sometimes people don't have the ability to even know the beliefs, but they just go, well, I just have all this fear. And so in shadow work, we shine a light on that, and we do these special processes with parts. We look at these different parts. Oh, there's a part that believes you can have everything. And then there's a part that says you don't deserve anything, And so we do these processes with these parts, and we do transformational work inside our bodies where we can move these beliefs in a different way. Like maybe we'll take a stand and go, fuck you. I hope that was okay that I'm cursing, fuck you. I am good enough. Shut up, get out of my life. And we might take a stand and feel what it's like to tell that voice that says you're not good enough to take a hike. Or maybe we need to give ourselves a new message saying, honey, this is just not true. You're so beautiful. You deserve the best. And you can trust that you've got your back. I'm right here with you. And so we embody these new messages. We embody these new experiences. We anchor them in. And so we start to come from that new authentic strength and clarity, and the other stuff just kind of falls to the wayside.
I like it. I love that. And it reminds me of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've done some Reiki Reiki 1 and 2 certification, and one of the things we did was talking to our inner child, that 6-year-old that's scared of whatever they're scared of, or the relationships they have. And my God, like people were just like bawling, and
Sure.
or
Oh, yeah.
and figuring out what that voice is from, because a lot of the stuff is, a lot of the things in relationships that come up are trauma from our childhood, right? So like,
Totally.
so talking, whether it's the 6-year-old, but you probably have, there's probably all different ages of when people had trauma, especially in relationships, where they can go to that place and
Yep.
talk to them. Is that what you kind of, is that what you're saying? Sort of,
It's one of the tools we use, and the founder of Shadow Work, because it's a special body of work called Shadow Work. It's the trademark body of work, because there's a lot of people saying they do shadow work. This is a very specific type of processing that we do, shadow processes. And I just lost my train of thought. Where were we? Oh yes, the part playing. And so what Cliff Barry and Mary Ellen Wallen did, the founders of Shadow Work, is they pulled upon different modalities. And so there is the talking to parts, and there's special languaging. There's special, if you will, NLP, neuro linguistic programming, hypnosis, part playing, psychodrama. There's different modalities that they've included, so that it's not just talking to parts, but we're actually really rewiring the dialogue, the inner dialogue that's inside of ourselves.
yeah, because we basically beat the shit out of ourselves a lot, like that voice.
Uh-huh. Yep. And so I say that we lower the volume of those voices so that we don't beat the shit out of ourselves anymore. It's like, oh, excuse me, I'm doing this. I really need you to take a seat. I've got this, because it's an old message. It's an old strategy of, you're screwing. I mean, so many times in the past when I was on stage speaking, I had this roaring voice in my head going, you should have practiced more. You're really screwing it up. They're not getting it. And I couldn't even be present for what I wanted to share. Now that voice is so much lower. And it's like, oh, you could have practiced more. And I'm like, yeah, no, thank you for your advice. We'll talk about that later. I need to focus, I know I'm ready, and I'm going to show up the best I can.
But with anything, it really is practicing. And, every time we walk by the mirror, we're like, my ass looks like, who would want that? And to changing of like, you're beautiful any which way you are. I love, whatever you say to yourself, but you have to keep practicing those, that dialogue in your head, I think.
Yep.
And it takes,
over time, it anchors in. Sometimes I'll look at myself in the mirror if I'm walking by it, and I'll wink at myself. It's like looking good, you're doing a great job, you're beautiful. We do need to reinforce that. And that's why I don't just do one session with people, because they might have a huge breakthrough, but it's not really anchored in. And there's all these different pieces to the puzzle. So it does take some time, but we're talking about months, not years.
Yeah.
And yet there's always more,
And then once you also, you're in a really healthy relationship now, but at some point, you have more things that come up and more life lessons to be learned that you have
layers. Yeah.
There's layers and layers.
Welcome to life.
Welcome to Earth School, as I call it. So I think we've covered. Thank you for explaining all the different aspects of the shadow work you do. That's so important. So what kind of people do you work with? I know we touched on it a little bit, but could you expand on that a bit?
Yeah. So as you said, do you work with men? I do. Some men raise their hands and they're a great fit, and I love working with men. However, 99.9% of the people I work with are women.
Yeah.
Typically 45 and up, to be really honest, mostly in their 50s, and are single. They're wanting love, and they're scared that they're going to be alone. They're struggling, financially sometimes, because they're paying all their bills on their own. Right. They're missing sharing their life, and they're hating dating. And so when I work with them, we are working on their confidence and clarity about what kind of relationship they want. They get more hope and excitement about what's possible, because it's totally possible. I have a client right now that just turned 70, and like so happy with this new relationship she just like started. I have another one that's I think 68 or 69, and she's been in a relationship since December, someone from my program, and then everybody else that I've worked with. So age, some people go, oh my God, I'm almost 70. It's like, it's just, if you want it, let's
Yeah.
just get your head and your body and you're in alignment. So I help women know that it's possible and have them enjoy the journey because they're more in tune with who they are, what they want, and are creating it. So that's who I help.
Okay, great. And I mean, I have so many friends that could use your help.
Yeah, yeah.
I read a statistic when I was doing some research for our podcast today. But so what I read was almost 60% of divorced people aged 55 and older have gotten remarried at some point, compared to 42% of 18 to 35-year-olds, which I think is really promising to like the group of people, who are our age and who are looking, for people out there looking for love. I just would love for
Yeah.
you to.
That's a great stat. And I'm going to add to that, which is
Yeah.
of those people in second marriages, 60% of those second marriages fail.
Yeah.
And some people go for a third marriage, and 70% of those marriages fail. And that's why we're talking about changing our patterns and healing, because it's exciting. You meet somebody, you dive in, it feels good. Oh my God, I'm not going to be alone. I have this great relationship. And then it doesn't work out because the same behaviors happen, the same fears bubble up. And then there's the crash and burn. You can't communicate, things like that. So, so yeah, the stats are there, but you can change them and heal and get remarried consciously and not from all of that noise in the background. 95% of our brain is unaware, is subconscious, unconscious, not able to really be present with what is. It's all that old baggage stuff. So we need to clean that out and bring that awareness, that consciousness to our next relationship, so we don't end up being one of those statistics. And there's hope. And I see it all the time.
There's hope. So I wanted to just also get your thoughts on, because we have seen so much change through our lifetimes. I'm like a child of the 60s, and it was just male female relationships. Now we've seen the LGBTQ, there's just been a lot evolved, and then people cohabitating, like that was forbidden when we were growing up, that kind of thing. And maybe people less who don't get married but live together forever and all that kind of stuff. But I have this thought sometimes of like saying yes to one person forever. Like part of me is like, that is just amazing. That romantic, dreamy part of me. And then there's another part thinking that is the, excuse my language, fucking craziest thing to actually say yes to someone forever. Right.
Yep.
But, so I would love to hear like your thoughts on if you think there's a shift in, because I think there's a certain percentage of people who are married who are really happy, but they do work at it and they have ups and downs. And then I think there are a lot that are in this middle sort of bucket. And then obviously there's 50% that get divorced. But do you think that the way we're looking at marriage and marriage and relationships and cohabitating and all that, do you think that it's going to change more?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's so much shift happening, and we're in a very different stage. I mean, that's such an interesting question. Yeah, that forever thing. I have a belief. I have a belief.
I love the thought of like, if I met someone and thought, you are it, and there's not one single doubt in my mind, like that would be amazing to feel that.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's also a crazy thing to say yes to, like, and so many people want it and say yes to it.
I know, because there's a feeling of safety and like, oh gosh, then I don't have to be out there again, and I have somebody that has my back and I can relax and just do this forever. This is what I see happening. This is my perspective on this, and who knows what's going to happen. I really hope this happens, actually, where we could see that we have two relationships in our life. We have the first one, which brings us into our 40s, where we're having the kids in the family and we're learning and growing up with each other during that. And so many people find themselves breaking up in their 40s, early 50s, because they've gone in different directions. They're different people. Some people have found a way to stay together. And believe me, I'm envious of them. Like, oh my God, it would have been so great, really, to just have worked that relationship and had the history. I mean, it hurts to start again and have to build on some level, to build a whole new trajectory, to have all those memories of my kid and all the things with the same person for 50 years. I mean, there's something about that that's enticing to me still. With that said, the paradigm shift that I see is the first relationship served its purpose, went the distance for most. May we be able to go, okay, we've done that. Now we're in a different place. Let's bless each other off. I wish divorce wasn't so painful and litigious and crazy. And so maybe we get to a place where there's, okay, we've hit that point and we know it and we let go, and with ease and love and honoring. And then we open to the second stage, which is who are we now and what's coming up for us now, whether we decide to be alone or in a polyamorous relationship, or to find that somebody for the rest of their life. I really, truly want to have one person. I'm a monogamous person, even though I've played in the realms of open relationships and poly. I've done it pretty much everything.
I'm not a good place.
And I want to just dive in with this man.
Yeah. No, I just think it's a really interesting, and trust me, I like the idea of marriage. I just, when I think about it, and I agree with you, I think for a lot of people, they were meant to be with this person, to have children with them and to learn what they learned. Like maybe it's part of their universal, I'm getting a little woo-woo here, but part of our universal assignment to be with this person and to go through that pain, to learn and to grow and to have children together. And then but not everyone is in that bucket. And then there are those people that do meet each other in high school, like my sister and her husband, 30 something years. They've been together since they were 18 and they have an incredible marriage. And
I'm sure they work it, and I'm sure they have challenges. Right. I think my hope is we can be more understanding of all the different types of relationships and to be more gentle with the transitions of relationships, to have that conscious uncoupling, to be coming from that place of highest and best for everybody. And we're just not there yet. So may we continue to heal ourselves and open to what works for us now.
Yes, for sure. Well, thank you for diving into that question that I do think about a lot. And it really is what works for people, I think, too.
Yeah.
So dating, I'd love to just hear it, and you don't have to, however you want to answer this, but we used to there was no internet when we were growing up. If we bumped into someone, and if you had the balls to talk, or they had to say something, or sometimes there's drinking involved and it was not a big, it was a little bit easier. You had some liquid courage or whatever, but now most people are meeting other people on the internet, or they get set up maybe, and I would love to hear your 2 cents on that, on internet dating and or meeting someone, and your experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, it still happens where you meet
audience on giving them advice and tools of how to meet people and how to go about that.
Yeah, and again, that's a huge question. I think the stat is like 60% of people meet online now. So people meet each other organically, parties, people introduce you to other people. And there's a huge tool called online dating. And there are strategies to work it better than others so that you're not answering a lot of messages or sending a lot of messages and having lots of time wasted. There's more now with video chatting because of COVID, which is awesome. Those two women that I said in their late 60s, early 70s, they met online and did video chatting. Sorry?
What are their names?
I'm going to not say their names.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 of my clients.
Oh,
And
I thought you meant it was someone public that, sorry.
yeah, no, these are 2 of my clients that
Okay, no,
have had
go
success
ahead.
online. Yeah. And so online dating is an amazing tool. With that said, you need to know what your priorities are, what your values are, what kind of life you want, and to be able to write a profile that's inviting to somebody and not just a resume of I like to walk on the beach and sip champagne at brunch. There are strategies in how to be engaging. There are strategies in how to text one another, how to engage somebody new. Women, reach out to the men. Don't be just at the mercy of them reaching out to you. You are in it too. Yeah. So there's so many different ways to do it, but at the end of the day, yeah, online dating is a huge tool. And it starts with, what are you looking for? What's going to make you happy? What kind of life do you want? And come from that place.
Do you think that, because in some of the dating that I've done, I feel like I know very quickly whether I would want to go any further within that first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Like that immediate.
I think when you really know your must-haves and know ways that you can break through, cut away the relationships that are not going to be for you much quicker. I mean, in my profile, I had written, I'm looking for someone who's done parenting or really close to being done parenting. And I was having this conversation with this awesome guy. I don't know, we were just yapping. It was 10, 15 minutes in. I was having a blast. I was excited. And then he said, we might have a problem. We might have a deal breaker here. And I was like, oh shit, what? And he was like, I have a 9-year-old. And then he started to say, she's lovely. She's precocious. She's so wonderful. And I'm like, yeah, because she's 9.
Right.
Give her a few years when the aliens come and she's a real pain in the ass. Anyway, long story short, he was shocked that I said, I'm sorry, this is not a fit for me. But we have such a great connection. We have so much in common. I'm like, yeah, but we're in different stages of life. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to be free on the weekends. I don't want to do Girl Scout cookies. I've done that. I'm done being the parent. So I think it's important to be able to cut faster, and we want to be able to cut consciously, not because we're scared, not because some of our old wounding is kicking up. So I have no problem when somebody goes, you know what, I know that this is not a fit. I think you're a great person, but I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
I do think we need to give people a chance too, because we're getting to know each other. It's not an interview when we go on dates. Think about going to a party and you just start talking with somebody. You don't start asking them, well, what's your relationship history? How long have you been divorced? It's like, what are you really looking for? You're like, you just start talking like a regular person, to have some fun and meet this person. And then you start to look at, is it a fit or not?
Yeah. And I think people sometimes are so nervous on that first date, especially if it's a blind date kind of thing where you've never met in person and you're not always yourself. And so
Yeah.
that could change the dynamic once you get comfortable with them. So,
I have a free gift that you're welcome to share with whoever is watching, which can really help with that. There's the inner demons, there's the gremlins, there's the fears that could trip you up and sabotage those dates, sabotage your life. And so it's called Find Fabulous Love After 40. It's a love guide. It's a workbook. It is, I think the title even says for women, but men, if you're watching, you could totally use this guidebook and just disregard any of the pronouns. And I basically help you step by step change that wiring so you could feel more confident and clear and not trip yourself up on that first date. So it's more enjoyable, so that you can have more fun. And again, come from this place of what's most important to you. So it's a way to lower the volume of your inner critic and up the volume of your excitement and your joy, so you actually can have more fun.
That's awesome. And you're coming from a place of love and not fear. And so,
because that's attractive. Come on, let's be real.
Right.
You go on a date and you bring that big bag of crap with you, and you're in your fear and you're blocked, and they're going to sense it, you know. Or a lot of women go on the dates. I'm sorry.
You just need to bring your carry-on, as you said. I learned
Bring
something.
on the carry-on. And so many women I hear, and I've worked with them about this, is they go on the dates and they go, oh, I hope he's the one. I hope he's the one. And when you go in with such high expectations and you hope he's the one, he's going to sense that, and there's going to be pressure. And then, you know, it just messes it all up. So be able to come from that place of love and enjoyment and fun. And then they're going to go, wow, there's no pressure. She's really fun to be with. I don't feel like I have to answer all these questions. It's organic. That's the way to start a new relationship.
An interview, a job interview.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. I will list the free gift for everyone. And
Great.
Where can people, you have a huge Facebook group, you have a website, but tell us where we can find you. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm kind of all over the place right now. So if you look up Love Coach Junie Moon, that's like, I'm everywhere. You know, I'm on Clubhouse, I'm on Twitter, Instagram. The Facebook group, though, is a really sacred, special place. That is just for women, and it's called Find Fabulous Love After 40. And that's, you know, many, many amazing women on the love journey, where each women's, you know, the women support each other. They get their questions answered. They help each other. They share so many different resources. And I'm in there doing special trainings, free trainings. And yeah, it's just a wonderful love hub for women to support each other and learn together.
It's a really great group. I'm part of your group. So
Thank you. I'm glad you're there.
You know, is there anything else you want to share with our audience before we jump off about yourself?
The only thing I'm going to share,
love and dating and
I mean, I think that the biggest thing is that, you know, don't give up and do the work. If you really want to have a spectacular life, if you really want to have love, what I call next level love, where you could just be yourself and love it, then invest in support, invest in yourself, and do the work. Get my workbook, do the workbook. Don't just read it, you know, do it. And don't give up. Love is there for you. And if you want it, you will experience it in ways beyond your wildest imagination. So that's my last few words for the listeners, watchers.
Love that. Thank you so much. I think you're giving hope and inspiration to so many people who are really struggling and frustrated and feel like they're banging their head against the wall. And
yeah,
I think
learn some new skills. You know, and I think the other thing I also want to say is, it's not your fault that things have gone south. It's not your fault that you've sabotaged certain things that you really loved. It's just not your fault. You've picked up some bad habits. You've picked up some horrible lies that you've bought into, and it's just time to shift some things and put a stake in the ground for who you are now and what you want, and create it, because you are a powerful human being, and that's just a fact.
1000%. And we have to practice, and we have to do the work. And yeah, this has been great. I love spending this hour with you, Junie Moon, and the Love Coach. And I'm going to give you all the places where you can find her. And you don't have to do this alone. They don't have to do this alone. There's a lot of support. And
I didn't do it alone. I had great mentors, shadow work coaches, therapy. I mean, I've done a lot, workshops, read books, but at the end of the day, you really need somebody to help you get past that conscious mind and do the inner healing work.